You know, if you are in a place that you do not have any services, you do not have access to school, you do not have access to develop yourself as a person, and you have the opportunity, I mean, to go to a city like this, it could be good, but if it's not, but if it's possible for you to stay in your community, it's better, for sure. Because you know, you do not integrate persons with disabilities when you do something like this. You disintegrate persons. You know, you put you put them in a ghetto. So what does it mean for the rest of the population? They are trash. They have their city because, you know. So in Japan, I'm talking about Asian continent, Japan and South Korea. At the end of 80s in Japan of South Korea, we already had a lot of laws there to and measures and to integrate persons with disabilities in all the spheres of their societies. We have to know about the culture of Japan and South Korea particularly. They have a very big respect for persons, for all kinds of persons. So persons with disabilities in these countries are very well respected most of the time. So they have access to school, they have access to work. And the government of Japan particularly made more than this. It gave priorities everywhere to persons with disabilities. They call it positive discrimination. If you want to have access to a museum, you do not pay. The rest of the population pays, but because of your handicap, you do not pay. And you have a special entrance. And giving access you to the museum without making the line. You know? So it's not only for this, it is for all the spheres of the life of person with disability. In Japan, it's very simple. I have visited many cities in Japan, particularly Tokyo, Sapporo, Kyoto, Nagoya. All stations, all trains are accessible. So it's very easy. When you arrive at the airport, it's almost too much, you know. They came to you saying, "Oh, I will take care of you. I don't want you to take care of me. Just let me go to my to my gate. I will have my flight myself." No. I will take care of you. You know, that's okay. It's in their culture. It's respectful done. So in China, we spoke about China yesterday. Something is happening in China. It's not very easy. Now they stated that they have more than 83 million persons living with a disability. They transform the cities, but it's very poor in the rural areas. And they say, the government of China say that more than 70% of the population who has a disability is work. But in fact, we cannot say it like this. It's not true. I have to say that in China, that's true that they work. But for probably more than 90% of this 70%, they do not have the choice they have to work where the government decided that where they will do. And the kind of work they ask is not always appropriate for persons with disabilities. This situation is not easy in China because it's not respectful at all about the rights, about their rights. So even the government of China says that more than 80% of the population with the disability works. In fact, just recall that it is just in the view of the government. On the reality, this is not the case. In India, I have a couple of things in my notes that I would like to share with you. The last statistics I have seen about India talks about 75 million persons with disabilities in India. First country to ratify the convention, to sign it. And then we have in India the same situation than what we have seen in most of African countries, having a national law, a beautiful national law since 1995, and I have heard here from your specialists, from your experts, that most of these dispositions of the law are not respected, are not implemented. Like I told you yesterday, having a law and do not have it implemented it's like do not have it. It's like do not have a law at all. But it's worse. What I have heard about India, it is most of persons with disabilities here live in shame and isolation. They are rejected by their families. They do not have any choice to live anywhere else than in a ghetto. I have heard also from the Indian government that they have done a lot in great cities, in big cities, particularly in Delhi, Mumbai, and Calcutta, to bring some accessibility in the cities. But do you remember what I said yesterday when I explained how it works? That government have to understand that before to provide with accessibility, before to provide with transportation, before to provide with school, with work, you have to provide with health, access to health care, access to a wheelchair if you need it, access to rehabilitation, and then access to be lodged, and then you can talk about something else. But I think, I say it with respect, that it was not well understood here. Other countries in Central Asia, talking about Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Cambodia, and Vietnam, most of them have laws, national laws. They have what we have seen there. If we compare Malaysia and in Singapore, which are considered like rich countries, they have done a lot for persons with disabilities in their countries. But if we compare with Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, it's totally different. These countries, the situation looks like what you have here in India. This is clear. In Oceania, in Australia particularly, Australia has the same difficulty than Canada. It is a large country with a small population. 22 million persons in Australia, 33 in Canada. And it's very large. So what does it mean? You have small cities everywhere. Uh, just a part of the population live in big cities. For a country like Canada, you have 3 big cities, and for the rest of the population, most of them live rurally. So what does it mean? It means that in big cities, it's always possible to get some services, to get access, to go to school, but when you get out from the big cities, it's difficult to have services. This is the case in Australia. I visited Australia. Sydney is fully accessible. It's the same thing in Canberra, it's the same thing in Melbourne, it's the same thing in Adelaide, and in the north in Cairns. On the west coast, Perth is accessible. But if you're talking about the rest of the country, all the other small cities are not accessible, or it's very poor about this. So, and in Australia, we have considered also that they have a population of disabled persons or persons with disabilities that they do not have access to school. Once we are in 2016 and it's not resolved yet. Most of these persons are on the island of Tasmania. Okay? And for different reasons, they do not have access to school. They try to bring them on the main continent, on the mainland. But they don't want to do it. They prefer to stay in the island. So, New Zealand, the situation looks like what we have in Australia and in Canada. They have implemented the law. Most of the big cities can provide with services. So, I told to you a couple of times during my presentation that the first thing you have to consider is to change the attitude, you know, the thinking of the person with disabilities itself first. We have seen everywhere around the world where we have been successful, it always becomes from the person with disabilities itself first, okay, with the help of the other after. What it could be useful for India. I talked yesterday about how it is important for the government of India to teach to its population about the capacities. Person with disabilities can do it, but the rest of the population does not know it, and they have to know it. So this experience around the world could be useful for you to understand that you have to teach for the other persons in the population, for the other groups, to tell we have disabilities, but we have also capacities. Okay, we have to focus on the capacities and not on the disabilities. So the third rule, the third lesson we can use for India. I told you already, it is having persons with disabilities contribute to the development of the society fully, inclusively. The fourth rule is where it is possible to do, keep the person with disabilities in the community. And the fifth rule could be take measures. And you see this fifth rule arise, what I'm saying here, it's arrived at the 5 rule, and it talks about having measures to give the person with disabilities opportunities to participate to all the spheres of their development and the development of the society. These measures come from the government, but it comes from the community as well. So, but it arrives at the first level, at the 5th level, not at the first one. And at the end, I told you yesterday that it's impossible just to read the convention and not be very disturbed by the fact that in the convention it mentioned that persons with disabilities are a person, are a human, you know. So, but it is important for the rest of the population to see and to know and to understand that the difference, you have understood this morning, this man there, just on my right, make a presentation, he explained very well about how it is important to know about the difference. And the difference, it does not mean that there is no capacities. This is just a difference. This is making the thing differently. Okay? Until the age of 19, I was walking. At the age of 20, until now, I did not walk, but I walk in my head. And why can I say it? Just because at the age of 20, I just accepted to live differently. That's it. You live in a way. You can live tomorrow in another way. We call it live differently. That's it. This is all what the person with disabilities has to know in this country. And I stop here. Thank you to hear.